If you've been following my channel recently, you'll know that I bought this Alfa Romeo 156 Sportwagon, and particularly because it had this 2.5 litre V6 engine. Now, it's quite a special engine. Okay, it's an oldish car, but I'm going to show you today why this is the ultimate Q car and probably the coolest one you can buy at the moment for very, very little money. This is the coolest Q car you can buy. Now, I just mentioned the term Q car in the introduction, and Q car, I don't think it's used very often these days. It's a term where they used to use it all the time, and I was going to say the old days, but it wasn't that long ago really. But it's not used so much these days, and Q car is really, I think what they call in America like a sleeper car. You know, it's a car that when you look at it, you wouldn't tell that it's maybe as fast as it is. So, and this is really one of those cars. This is one of those cars where it doesn't look like it should go very fast. It doesn't look like it should sound really, really cool. It doesn't look the way it feels and performs. And so this is why this is the ultimate Q car. I'll take you around the car, show you some of the interesting parts of it. I've always had a soft spot for the 156. I used to have one many years ago. I used to have a 2 litre version, which was a cellar speed version. Always lusted after a V6, so finally managed to buy one. Was you know, sort of a dream come true in a way, because they come up very often. They don't come up very often for sale, especially these Sportwagon versions. They're very rare, especially with this engine. So right, let me show you around. This car was launched to the public in 1996. That makes it 21 years old, and I still think this looks like a really, really fresh design. Even if it was launched today, it wouldn't be far different to what it was 21 years ago. And that's a lot of credit to Walter de Silva, who headed up the Fiat design studio at the time when they designed the car. And they just did an amazing job with it. They took a lot of elements from previous Alfas and combined them into this car and added them in to give it sort of some retro feel, modern but retro feel. And they did it in such a cool way. Now, let's start the front here. I mean, this was always one of the things with this car was the intriguing placement of the number plate. The number plate had to be shifted to the side because they introduced this enormous grille at the time. Previous Alfas to that had a much smaller grille. With the 156, the grille became much, much larger, and that meant that they had to put the license plate on the side of the car. Now it was really odd, and I remember at the time when this was launched, I thought that looks really weird, the number plate to one side, but actually you sort of get used to it. And in a way, it's quite a cool feature of it because it's so unique. So there they put it on the side, and it looks fine because they had to make way for this lovely, lovely grille. Big grille like the older Alfas used to have. This particular car's got very faded headlamps. I'm not sure whether this can be cleaned or tidied up or not. I'm assuming it's going to need some new ones. Looking at the car from the side, one of the things that they really tried to do with this car very much was to make it look like a coupe, even if it wasn't a coupe. And that meant that they had to hide the rear door handle. So you can see here the door handle is actually hidden here. You can't see it very clearly. It doesn't form part of the door. There's no door handle visible on the door. And so what they then also added was these really sort of retro looking door handles they look like they're from another era, the sort of 60s, 70s type Alfas. So, and because they had this really sort of prominent door handle here and a lack of a door handle here, that gave it this much more sort of coupe feel. And that's what, this was such a unique design. This was not done before. This was one of the very first cars to have hidden door handles. And they did it to such a good effect. This particular Sportwagon design, I wasn't that fond of it when it first came out, to be honest, and I sort of like, I preferred the saloon version, but over time I actually preferred this estate version. Now, it's not really an estate. There's not that much space in the boot. It's a little bit deceiving. It looks like it should be quite spacious, but it's not, and I'll show you in a minute. But the design, it's all about the design. It wasn't about practicality, functionality. It was completely about, it's got to look good. And so they called it a lifestyle estate instead of an estate car. It was a lifestyle estate. At the back here, we've obviously got the very important badge to show us that we're driving quite a spectacular version of this car. Now you can see here my badge is missing. I blame that on my daughter 100%. She thought that, like on a VW, that you have to lift the badge to open the boot, and that's obviously not the case. She pulled the badge right off. It's now in the sitting between the driver and the passenger seat. So yeah, it's a bit unfortunate that that came off. I'll have to stick it back on. There is actually no way of opening the boot without opening it from the inside or with a key, which is a bit annoying. This car that I bought, it's not been in the best of conditions. Whoever kept it before didn't really look after it very well. It's got quite a lot of bruises, cuts and bruises all over it. It's got quite a few scratches. The paintwork along the top is quite faded in places. I don't know whether we can sort of T-cut that or something and try and improve it. If not, I thought maybe just wrap the roof. Can't get my words out, but wrap the roof or something to make it, you know, just hide that, because that's really sort of the worst offender, is the roof. I think that's quite common sometimes in Spain with paintwork, especially on the roof and on the bonnet, because the sun is so strong. Sometimes we just get this paint fade. I'll show you the inside. I'll just start the boot and we'll work our way forward. So to open the boot, there's a little lever in here. So lift that, and we have the fastest opening boot in the world. Check this out. It's only because the struts aren't quite 100%. I've just realised there's a present that we bought today and a chocolate muffin wrapped up, which shouldn't be in the boot anymore. This unfortunately doesn't close properly anymore. Now, as you can see, there's not a huge amount of space in the boot. It's more, I mean, it's just, you know, it's quite it looks like it should be quite spacious, but it's not, because there's not actually that much space. The height is very limited, and it's just, you can't really put a lot in there. You can fold the rear seats down, which is good, and I do like this net. I do like this net here, where you can put stuff in to stop it rolling around. But overall, it's not a big boot. It's quite small. You might have seen in one of my earlier videos of the car that the wiper was sort of up here. It wasn't centered properly. Now you can see it's in the right position, but I sort of cheated. I didn't fix the motor or anything. I just unbolted it here and just put it there, so at least it looks right. I don't really care that the rear wiper doesn't work. Let's take a look inside. This particular version is the Lusso version, and that's identified by this beautiful mahogany steering wheel. You can see it's got leather interior. It's supposed to have 4 electric windows, but some of them don't work. Typical, really. So inside here, the car's it does have a few problems. It's not like I said earlier, like the outside. The inside has its own issues. Now look on the steering wheel here, you can see this, the back bit of the steering wheel is sort of coming apart, which is not nice. The real bugbear of mine is the sun visor, which doesn't appear to want to stay up. It just falls down. I put some sticky stuff on it the other day just to try and keep it up, but even that's not working, so I'll have to probably replace it. I don't know if it's easy to fix or not, but just get out of the way because it's very annoying. What I love about this car, and I really do love it, is this instrument cowl there. These two, it reminds me of the Lamborghini Miura. The Lamborghini Miura's got a really similar design. And obviously older Alfas also had that sort of cowl, you know, with a speedometer in one and the Rev Counter in the other side. But it just looks so cool. And when you're behind the wheel, it looks really sporty. I mean, it does have a really, really sporty feel. Now, in true Alfa style, it's also got this angled dashboard. So these dials are all angled towards the driver. Probably a bit annoying for the passenger if he wants to see the time, for example. Can't see the time, which is this one. I did think that this car would probably have an oil temperature or an oil pressure dial, but it doesn't have either. So it's only got obviously the water temperature, clock, and the fuel. And here we've just got obviously the Rev Counter and the speedometer. Now the Rev Counter, you can see, goes up to 7,000. The engine on this car, I think it produces peak power at, I think, 6,500. So it's quite a revvy engine. and I think peak torque is at about 5,000. You really notice it at 5,000. But we'll take it on road in a bit and I'll discuss that in a bit more detail. This has got a Panasonic Stereo, which is absolutely dreadful, but it's not the original one. I don't think it is. It's a bit broken here, there's plastic as well. So that would mean the whole thing needs to be replaced. So I'll probably have to do that at some point. We've got here the wooden gear stick and the lovely leather surround. This is quite common with a lot of 156s, where the airbag cover sort of comes off. You can see it lifts, which is a little bit annoying, but that is a very, very common problem. Not sure the best way to fix it. I haven't looked at it, I haven't really done anything with it, but I will do at some point. Now, this was a very cool design dashboard. You know, when this car came out, it was very, very cool. The way it sweeps around and the angled center console towards the driver to, you know, to accentuate this sporty feel that it's got. This up here, in case you're wondering, is just the ventilation. These are the air vents. So you can repoint them there. They're actually quite small, strangely small. I don't know who came up with this idea. The ones here are obviously a bigger size and a bit better. These are a little bit small. I find them a little bit inadequate. The controls are here. This has got, you know, just the usual, your temperature, fan speed and different positioning. Of course, typical Alfa style, you've got your lighter, your cigarette lighter and your ashtray. Down here between the seats, we've got a really weird. This is where the fog light switches are positioned, which is really odd because it's a really odd place to put them. They're normally on the left side here, aren't they? In most cars, you find them over here somewhere. And on this car, they are between the seats. I'm assuming it was a bit of an afterthought or something. And they, oops, we need some fog lights, and they sort of just whack them in there. And even worse is probably the fact that these seats are actually heated. They have heating. I didn't realise these seats were heated until I was cleaning the car inside, and I noticed that down here there was a button just here. It's very hidden away, and then it had a little picture of the heating element. I thought, they're heated. I haven't actually pressed it yet because I feel like it might be a bit like an ejector seat button or something, or my bum might catch fire. Let's take a look at the rear of the car. Open it there. In true Italian style here from the 1990s. We have an ashtray, of course, very, very necessary. Now, space-wise, if I get in here, it's a little bit tight. I mean, let's not joke about it. It is tight. So this seat is where I'm in my sort of comfortable position, because it's not the most comfortable position, but my feet are quite tight under here, and knee room is very limited. Headroom though, it's pretty good. I'm 6 foot tall, so headroom in the back is fine, but space, and it's actually quite a narrow car, so there's not a huge amount of space for a third passenger. Now, before we take it on the road, I think we should just have a look under the bonnet. If I can find, there we go. Pure bliss. This is what it's all about. This is just such a beautiful engine. I don't know of an engine that looks as beautiful as this. It does need a bit of a clean up, but it is just gorgeous. I've had to do a few things to this engine, to be honest. I mean, I'll go through it in a different video. I've had to change this part here. This engine mount has sort of twisted and come off. You can see that's new. And I've fixed a leaking exhaust gasket, and I had some problems with the power steering system. So most of that's okay now. But this is really, I mean, this is one of the massive reasons for buying this car. And I mean, it must have been some fascinating meeting at Fiat, I think, or Alfa Romeo, where they sat round some table, all smoking their cigarettes, going, why don't we dump the V6 into the Alfa 156? It's such a good idea. That sounded a bit Russian, I think. But, you know, what a meeting that must have been, them sat trying to, the idea of putting this massive engine in this car. It's mental. Doesn't make any sense at all. It's not the most powerful of engines either. I mean, it's 185 horsepower, I think, so it's not really, really powerful considering the size of the engine. But you can tune them quite easily, and you can get quite a lot of power out of these engines. I'm not about to do that myself just yet. But, right, let's take it on the road. Ooh. This car is all about this. This car is all about putting a smile on your face. And it's all about the engine. Just one of the most beautiful sounding engines ever, and I think it actually got voted one of the best engines in the world or something, or the most charismatic. Lots and lots of magazines, lots and lots of journalists have always said amazing things about this engine, and you can't believe it until you actually drive one. The most impressive thing isn't even the exhaust sound, it's the actual engine sound. Is really something very special. Now in here though, typical sort of Alfa style, you know, I can't quite get comfortable. My legs are a little bit bent. You need short legs to drive this car. So if you're like me with slightly long legs, you always end up with bent legs, and there's no way around it. Because you either stretch your legs and take up all of the rear seat space, and then you're sort of sat with your arms really sort of stretched out, or you bend your legs a bit like I've got, and you can find a sort of a compromise. It's not the most comfortable driving position. Quite a noisy car in here. You can't, it's not like, I think I was used to, I mean this is a 20-year-old car anyway, but I mean there's lots of squeaks and lots of rattles. It doesn't feel particularly solid. The Saab, for example, sort of wafts along and it feels like it's not going to fall apart, whilst this one, sometimes when I'm going over like a bumpy road or something, I always feel like something is going to give way. A bit like this, a bit like this sun visor, which just won't stay up. Handling wise, well, I mean this has got some weird tyres on. I don't even remember the brand, but they're not, it's not a brand that you'd probably recognise if I told you it. I'll try and remember to video it when I get out of the car later. But so the handling is not great, but it's just because the tyres don't seem to have much grip at all. They really don't hang on. The car isn't particularly, it's a little bit wallowy, not very wallowy, but a little bit wallowy in terms of the fact that, I mean, the steering is quite direct. I think it's like 2.2 turns lock to lock, so it's relatively direct. But you don't get, I think, I've been trying to work out what it is, and I thought, is it the steering feels slow? The steering's a little bit heavy. And then I thought, well, I think what it is that the engine is heavy. And I think a heavy engine is what sort of compromises the steering a little bit, because I'm pretty sure that when I had my 2-litre Alfa, it handled a lot better than this one. I think this one is definitely compromised by the weight of the engine. It's a big lump at the front. I think it weighs something like 170 kilos. So you know that above the front wheels, it's got to have an impact on the steering. And so I find it feels a little bit slow to respond. I'm not sure if I'm explaining myself very well, but it just feels a little bit slow to respond. It doesn't feel like a sports car. It feels too heavy, especially at the front, and then you get quite a lot of understeer, which I blame on the engine. The ride is actually surprisingly good. I mean, I thought it might be a bit, because the car's not exactly been looked after that well, I thought that the suspension itself might not be as good as it used to be, but it's not bad. And it rides okay. I've noticed, for example, on the motorway, it's not a comfortable car like the Saab is, even the Ford or the Ferrari. It is very loud, and because it's quite loud, you feel, in a way it's good, just it stops you speeding because you feel like you're going really fast and you're not going that fast. The brakes are surprisingly good. I was quite surprised with the brakes. The brakes in the Saab are rubbish, really bad. This is actually pretty good. If you stomp on them, they do stop. They stop pretty well. So I've put new pads on them anyway, but they're pretty good. What I really love about this car is just the excitement, the experience of driving it. You know? And it all starts, I think, with this mahogany steering wheel. This steering wheel, why don't they do these anymore? I don't know. I know some of maybe the Maseratis or Bentleys or something, I think you can get wood or partial wood steering wheels, I'm not sure. But this is a delight, you know. Why don't they do this anymore? Why doesn't the new Giulia have a wooden steering wheel? This is lovely. It's just the whole feel of the car in here. It feels like a completely different car to what it is. But like I said, it's this whole experience. You know, these dials here, very Lamborghini Miura looking, very, very sporty. I love these white dials. The white dials look fabulous. But one of the things that I really love, and I didn't think I was going to like at all, is this gearbox. Because I felt that the gear change was going to be too wallowy and too long and stuff, but actually there's something very special about this gearbox. I really like it because it feels like an Alfa from the old era. You know, those eras where you really had to like work it, and it was a bit of a long throw gearbox. And it has this, you know, the gearbox in the Ford Focus RS is just like, it's solid, it's really direct, it's a lovely, lovely gearbox, it really is. But this is a lovely gearbox in a completely different way, and it completely suits the character of the car. It completely suits this ambience of like the wooden steering wheel, the racy dials, the central console that points towards you. Everything that shouts sportiness, and Alphas of old. There's so many of those things in this car, and this gearbox sort of adds to that. And this long throw that it's got, coming down to this roundabout here. It's a really long throw gearbox. It's really weird. And I didn't think I was going to like that. But then you feel like you're really working it. It's not giving you anything. It's up to you to try and do a good, smooth, quick change. And it just suits the character of this car. So why is this the ultimate Q car? Well, what I've noticed is that when I'm driving along, I'm going along, say, when there's people, and I'm flooring the accelerator, and it's doing its beautiful howl, and the exhaust is making its massive noise, and people turn around and they go, bloody hell, it doesn't make sense. They're expecting something completely different to this 21-year-old Alfa 156 nondescript. This is not, it's got no big wings, it's got no big side skirts or blacked out windows or anything, or stripes or anything. And so people hear it going through, they turn around and they go, oh, you can see there's like a confusion on their faces. I'm going to try and do a video one day just recording people's reactions to the car, because they are very funny. They are very funny. You just do not expect to see this car after they've heard it. And that's what a Q car is all about. And, okay, it's not blindingly quick. It's not a really quick car, but it is quick. It's quick enough to fool a lot of people, and it's noisy enough to fool a lot of people, and it's noisy enough to put a big smile on your face. And that's why this is the ultimate Q car. And I only paid 1,200 euros for it. And somebody emailed me the other day and said they just bought one and they paid half what I paid. So you can get them even cheaper. I'm off home. It's taking about 4 hours to record this video, which seems absolutely ridiculous, and it'll take me probably a lot more than that to edit it. Anyway, keep following the channel and catch you very soon. Cheers, bye. Well, you didn't think I was going to throw myself on the ground, did you?